Okay, so the likely culprit of what you just saw is that the burner's not getting enough propane to keep itself lit. There's not enough pressure pushing all that gas out, and it creates a little bit of a vacuum, and that's why you're hearing that popping noise. So to fix it sounds pretty easy. We just need to up the amount of propane that we're delivering to that burner. The problem is that the way we adjust that is a very small screw that's hidden underneath your adjustment here for the temperature of the oven itself. So I'm going to show you why it's a little bit difficult to get to. If this happens to be the case for your oven, then you're going to have to proceed with the steps that I'm about to show you. Okay, so this is the controller for the oven, and it kind of acts like a little regulator. And right underneath, it's a little hard to see, let's see if I can get you guys. Right under there is a flathead screw, and that acts as the supply to the oven itself. So to adjust that, if you go all the way to the right, that's going to limit the amount of propane that's entering your oven burner. If you go to the left, that's going to increase. From the factory, I've been noticing that most of these actually come all the way to the right. So it's that little screw right under there. The problem that you're going to have is that it doesn't exactly face straight. So if I try to get this flathead screwdriver in here, it's at so much of an angle that I actually can't get a bite on it to move it left and right. This plate is in the way. In my case, I think this is a Dometic brand. Taking this plate off is a frickin' pain. There's like rivets and all kinds of stuff in here. So if this happens to be the case for you, what we're gonna need to do is the following steps that I'm gonna show you, but we're gonna have to remove a lot of stuff so that we can actually bring this up to gain access. All right, a quick disclaimer before we get started. We are gonna be dealing with things that work with propane. So if that at all concerns you, it's important to stop, consult an expert, or take it to somebody that does know what they're doing. Do not skip any steps here, folks. Take your time. It would really suck to make a mistake and hurt yourself, hurt somebody else, or burn down your camper that you're working so hard for. So let's begin by looking at the tools that I used to fix this. For one, you're going to need a Phillips screwdriver. It doesn't really matter the size, the style, just make sure that the Phillips head can fit the screws that you're working with. The second thing that we're going to need is a small, skinny, and preferably long flathead screwdriver. Now, I picked one of these up from a parts store, but the Snap-on tool guys also give these out. Anything that you have that's long and skinny will work. It's important that the flathead itself is very small. If you're feeling a little spunky, you can also use a power tool. But if it's your first time doing this, I'd only recommend using a guy like this to remove the screws. Make sure you tighten by hand, because they are like literally screws, so it's really easy to strip them out, and that would suck, because then you either have to find a larger screw or you're going to be making new holes, and that really stinks. Alright, so to begin, we're going to make sure that our little top here is removed, and this guy actually just pops right off, so you can kind of just give it a pull. Now, it's important to note that there are little rubber boots here that will sometimes get stuck to the little pegs here. So just make sure that when you're removing those, that you're really careful. We can see on this end here how the boot got stuck there. I'm going to leave it there, but just so you guys know, it's important to don't lose those, because then the little peg dances around in the stove and it's just really annoying. Now, a lot of these RV ovens aren't always the same model or brand. In this case, I have an Elite Series Suburban. It's a Dometic brand, I believe. And to remove this section here, you just kind of have to give it a little bit of a pull and it pops right out. You'll see that underneath here, there's basically like a little metal clip that holds this whole thing in place. So I'm just going to pull it out. Now, because we are taking the stove apart, it's also not a bad time to clean it. So what I like to do is I'll take this off screen here, and I like to use a product called Simple Green that you can buy from Home Depot. It's a real simple degreaser. I spray it down, let it soak, scrub it off, wash it down, and then I'll use something like Windex or something like that to take the streaks off. So also really common to get a lot of dust in this area, especially if you're off-roading like we are. So you can take a vacuum, clean that out, clean off the tops. Just a really good time. Go ahead and give this a clean while you're doing this. This is the point that you want to stop, because there's a very important step that we have to do before we touch anything else. And it involves turning off our propane, so let's go ahead and do that now. If you have 2 bottles, make sure they're both closed, sealed up tight, and then we'll head back inside. So that step is not done. We've turned off both of the propane bottles out inside the camper, but it's important to note that there's still going to be propane inside of the lines of the stove. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna open one of the lines. You can even light it with a lighter if you'd like, and watch the flame go out, and we'll turn on all the stoves, the stove tops here, to let all of the propane through the lines. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn that on. I can hear the propane going. And the propane bottle's off, but just to show you, we still have quite a bit of propane running through these lines. So I'm going to turn on a few of these. And we're going to let the propane completely die out. Alright, there it goes. Now it's completely out. You can see all of these are on. We'll go ahead and do that for the pilot light and also the oven. I don't like any natural gas, or excuse me, propane being in any of these lines while we're working here, because that's just a safety hazard. So let's get rid of all of the air before we do anything. These little knobs just pull off, but you do need to be very careful because they are just plastic. Now if you break one, not a big deal. You can find these online all the time, but just give them a little pull. If it's your first time doing it, they're probably going to be on there pretty good, so just give it a nice solid pull, like this guy's on there pretty tight. Oh, that one came off easy. And same goes for this guy. The one you got to be careful for, and I actually already broke it, so I've got a new part ordered on the way, is this guy. This guy, you can kind of see I broke one of the little pieces off right there. So just be a little careful with this one. This one tends to be the tightest for whatever reason. And I actually didn't need to take this one off. If you notice here, the reason why we're taking off these guys is because we're going to need access to this supply line right here. And the sparker actually doesn't even connect with it. So you can actually leave yours on, but the reason why I wanted to take mine off is because we're doing a deep clean, and I like to run these with soap and water just to get all the grease and stuff off of them. Okay, so now that we've gone ahead and removed all of our little dials here, what we're going to have to do is bring this regulator up more so that we can gain access. And if you look, there's a couple screws here. So there's a retaining screw here and here on the top, and then there's another one there, another one there, and you may not have to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and undo this screw here. Now remember, please proceed with the previous steps. There is no propane in these lines at all, and take your time, guys, if you haven't done this before, so you know how everything goes back. Another thing that tends to scare people is as you start taking these away, just remember that these are loose in here, okay? So don't freak out. And that's perfectly normal. Okay, so now that we have all those screws loose, you can kind of see that this gives us a lot of wiggle room to play with here. Now, one extra thing that I like to do is if you kind of pull this forward, you can actually kind of get these lines out of your way. And these kind of wiggle too, so you can kind of push them out of the way. And this just gives you a little extra room in here to clean and to do what we are about to do. Now, remember that that screw is kind of facing at an upwards region, so what we're going to have to do is pull this back a little. Let's see if I can do this with one hand. See how I did that? So I just kind of separated this, and this pops up, and now it gives me the freedom to move this up and down, which is going to give us access to that little screw underneath. Now, if that doesn't work for you and you need even more space, you can remove this little band right here. You just undo this screw, this band comes off, and there's a hole underneath this rail that leads directly into this regulator. So don't freak out if you accidentally undo this, it's not a big deal. There's a little nipple that slides right into that hole, so it's pretty hard to mess up putting this thing back, but in this case I don't really need to. I can actually just lift the whole thing up, but don't be afraid to take off this band. Just make sure that when you're putting it back together you don't force it, because the lip on there does fit perfectly in the hole that's on the bottom of this. Okay, so now you might be able to see my point earlier. From the factory, this screw is typically like all the way to the right hand side. So what I'm going to do is check that. Sure enough, mine is all the way to the right. Now I'm going to undo this. I'm going to scroll it to the left, and I would recommend about a quarter turn at a time. Now in my particular instance, I've actually already adjusted this, and when I adjusted mine, I actually had too much flame, and this was months ago, but I noticed that there weren't a whole lot of videos on this, so I'm basically recreating the problem that I had. So I know that a quarter turn in my instance isn't going to be enough, but basically I would recommend about a quarter turn every single time. I'm gonna do almost about 3/4 of a turn. Actually, let's start off. So if that's 1/4, that's 2/4. Let's do about there, which is almost 3/4. And that should be good for our first test. Now do not be in a rush. You guys are gonna have to do this several times before you get it right, and that's okay. It may take you guys having to do these steps several times before you get it right, but what we need to do now is test to see whether or not that's gonna be enough of a turn on that screw to keep our burner lit. So we're gonna have to put everything back together, so let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so let's go ahead and start putting this back together. What I need to do is pull this face back so that it's back underneath where we liked it. And we also need to put these guys back on, so just give this a pull. And they just slide on there, guys. That's pretty much it. The reason why these are loose is because they need, while they're pushing pressure, they're pushing that propane through here. This side will actually suck in oxygen, and that's how it works. So now that we are roughly kind of aligned, we can start putting our screws back. And in my particular case, there's 2 different types of screws here. So the long screws are what's going to go into the bottom to this plate, and the short kind of stubby screws with the larger head are going to be what goes here on the top. Also really important, do not over tighten, guys. Okay, it's also really important for this test that we put on the knob for your propane, because this has the little indicators for your pilot light. So let's go ahead and put that on now. Notice how there's a flat spot on the top that indicates off, so we can go ahead and slip that right on. For our next step, we're going to make sure that all of our knobs here are going to be in the off. So the flat spot indicates off, all the flat spots are pointed to the off position. We don't want to turn on our propane tanks outside and then just start spewing it out here, right? Another thing you could do if you're unsure, you can slip these guys on and just make sure that it's pointed to the off position. Now we'll go ahead and turn our propane back on. Okay, so now we can begin the arduous process of starting this oven. Now it's important to note that we cleared all of the lines full of propane, which means there's going to be a lot of air, regular air, inside of those lines. So be patient with this spot. It's important that when you're lighting the pilot light, it's going to take a while. It's a very small line. There's air in it now, and it's going to take a while for that propane to begin pushing from those tanks all the way into the oven. Okay, so to begin, you can see we're in the off position, and right here it says pilot on. So we're going to push that in, twist it to the side, and using 2 hands, we're going to use 1 hand to hold this pilot light on, because this is going to give additional pressure to get it lit. Just like that, you can kind of see. So you're gonna hold it down, and then with our other hand, we're gonna light the pilot light. Okay, so I'm pushing the pilot light in, and it's important to know it's gonna take a while for propane to reach this line. It's gotta push out all the air. So I'm pushing it in. You can see it's kind of barely lit at the moment. Let me see if I turn off this light, if it'll help you see a little better. There you go. So it's kind of barely lit at the moment, but we're just gonna hold it for a while. Don't lose your patience here. You gotta hold it a while. And if you let off the button and it disappears just like that, it means you haven't been holding it long enough. There's still air in the lines. So again, I'm gonna push it in, go ahead and give it a light, and we're just gonna wait. Okay, so I let go. I'm not holding the button, and we are lit. So we can see the propane is flowing through the pilot light all on its own. Now what I'm gonna go ahead and do is we're going to turn our temperature up so that we can get this burner lit. And would you look at that? It lit right up, no freaking problem. Let's check the other side. Look at that. Now, this is kind of the important part that I need to talk about. When you are adjusting the propane, it's really important that the propane, the edge of the flame, is not touching the top. It's not the worst thing in the world, but what's gonna happen is you're gonna really start to eat away at the coating on this thing, and it will deteriorate this very fast. In addition, what will end up happening is you'll end up burning the bottom of your food instead of actually working this just like an oven. So I'm basically looking all around to make sure that the flame isn't touching the bottom, which it doesn't look like it is. This center flame under there is always the bigger one, so I don't like that to touch, and it looks like it's occasionally kind of touching the top, but I think I'm actually pretty happy with how that's flowing. So I think we're gonna leave it for now, and if we ever need to make adjustments, we can. Now, just note that if you're still getting the popping, give it another quarter turn or maybe even an eighth turn, and do these little tiny turns at a time so that you can make sure you're not getting the flame too big, but that you're getting a much more reliable and consistent burn, just like we are now. Okay, so if you find that you've done these steps, but the flame isn't quite where you'd like it to be, just remember to repeat these steps in order. It's crucial to keep yourself safe, to keep your camper safe. You work hard to afford this dang camper. Don't burn her down on the first try, all right? So, if you find that the flame isn't where you'd like it to be, begin by turning everything off. You're gonna go outside, turn your propane bottles to the off position. Make sure they're off, make sure they're tight. Come back inside, we're gonna turn some of these stove tops on to let all the excess propane out of those lines. We don't want anything left in there. It's crucial this thing is empty when you're jacking around with it, okay? Once it's all empty, you can begin by disassembling it, just like we did. Adjust that screw one more time, put it all back together, make sure all of these are off, go back outside, turn on your propane tank, come back inside, and you can begin by lighting your oven all over again. So repeat those steps and take your time. If you get it right now, you're gonna have that much more fun while you're out there in the middle of the nowhere with your buddies and you're eating lasagna and pizza and meatloaf and whatever else you can cook up in this dang thing. If y'all happen to have any questions, please drop them in the comments below. I will do my best to answer anything that wasn't addressed in the video today. Now, if you notice that your oven and RV stove are looking a little different than the one we worked with today, please make sure that you consult with your owner's manual first, because you don't want to be messing with any screws that you ought not to be messing with, all right? If you could help support the channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing, that would be huge. We have a whole adventure series about us traveling from here in New Mexico all the way to the Pacific Northwest and back. And we even have more travel plans for the East Coast coming up soon. We also have a build series that's about to drop with all of the upgrades and maintenance that we had to do to this old 95 F350, so stay tuned for that. But until we see you next time, have a great rest of your day.